Roughly 90% of everything traded between China and Europe passes through the Suez Canal. A container ship leaving Shanghai today spends around 35 days reaching Rotterdam, through the South China Sea, the Malacca Strait, the Red Sea, all contested, none of them controlled by China. China has identified a different route. Across the top of the world, through melting Arctic ice, it is spending $100 billion to open it. This is the Polar Silk Road, China's plan for an Arctic shipping corridor that cuts the China to Europe journey by 40%. This video breaks down what China has spent, what the route saves, and why the biggest obstacle is not the ice. China's vulnerability on its current shipping routes is structural. 40% of GDP comes from international trade, and those goods travel through choke points China does not control, the Malacca Strait, through which 80% of its energy imports flow. The Suez Canal, gateway to European markets. The Red Sea, disrupted by Houthi attacks in 2025 and 2026. And the Strait of Hormuz, effectively closed for months in 2026. China's response has been to build around every single one. The Belt and Road covers overland routes, the Maritime Silk Road covers southern sea lanes, and the Polar Silk Road runs across the top of the world. The opening is climate change. The Arctic is warming 4 times faster than the global average. The Northern Sea Route is now accessible for roughly 4 to 5 months annually, and that window lengthens every decade. In October 2025, China and Russia signed a formal joint development agreement. That same month, the Istanbul Bridge, a Chinese-backed container ship, completed the first commercial non-icebreaker Arctic transit from China to Europe, docking at Rotterdam in just over 20 days. China's investment in the Arctic does not start with the 2025 agreement. It starts in 2014, when China National Petroleum Corporation took a 20% stake in Russia's Yamal liquefied natural gas (LNG) project on the Siberian Peninsula, a $27 billion development that became the first major physical anchor of the Polar Silk Road. The Silk Road Fund, China's state investment vehicle, took another 9.9%. Yamal LNG extracts natural gas from one of the largest fields in the world and ships it out on specially designed Arc 7 class icebreaker LNG carriers, capable of breaking through ice up to 2.1 meters thick without escort. At full capacity, Yamal LNG and the adjacent Arctic LNG 2 project, in which Chinese companies also hold equity stakes, could together produce 36.3 million metric tons of LNG annually. China imported 67 million metric tons of liquefied natural gas in 2025. These 2 projects alone could theoretically supply more than half of that. Beyond energy, China has been building logistics infrastructure along the route. New shipping lines signed agreements in 2025 to build a logistics complex at Providenia Bay and develop container shipping through the port of Murmansk. Chinese entities are reported to have invested in harbor infrastructure at 5 Russian Arctic ports. The October 2025 joint roadmap set a target of 20 million tons of Russia-China Arctic cargo annually by 2030. A joint Chinese-Russian shipbuilding venture is designing 5 Arc 7 class container ships for year-round operations, with the first targeted for 2027. The numbers for the Northern Sea Route hold up to scrutiny. Shanghai to Rotterdam via the Suez Canal is approximately 21,000 kilometers. Via the Arctic route, it is around 14,000 kilometers. That difference translates to 20 to 22 days at sea versus 30 to 35. The China Ocean Shipping Company, COSCO, saved 6,900 tons of fuel and over $9 million across 14 Arctic pilot trips in 2021. The Chinese-controlled Sea Legend Shipping is planning 8 seasonal Arctic sailings between mid-August and October 2026, targeting 20 to 22-day transits. Crucially, a ship on the Northern Sea Route does not pass through the Malacca Strait, the Suez Canal, the Red Sea, or the Strait of Hormuz. During the 2026 Hormuz crisis, when those southern routes were disrupted simultaneously, the Arctic alternative became the most commercially discussed sea lane on Earth. Russia's stated long-term target is 200 million tons of annual traffic by 2031. Here is the honest version of the Northern Sea Route in 2026. The route is accessible without icebreaker support for roughly 6 weeks per year. Outside that window, transit requires icebreaker escort that Russia controls and charges for. The route is fully closed to standard vessels for 6 months every winter. Maersk, the French global shipping and logistics giant CMACGM, and Hapag-Lloyd have all withdrawn, citing sanctions exposure, insurance costs, and environmental concerns about black carbon emissions in an ecosystem where ship soot accelerates warming faster than anywhere else on Earth. Even COSCO has not sailed the Arctic route since 2022. The operators currently active are 2 small Chinese-backed companies whose combined capacity is a fraction of one major global carrier. Russia did not sign the International Maritime Organization's IMO's 2024 heavy fuel oil ban for Arctic waters and will not be required to enforce it until 2029. The deeper problem is structural. Russian energy accounts for more than 80% of cargo on the Northern Sea route. China is not building an independent corridor. It is building one that runs entirely through Russian territory under Russian icebreaker escort at Russian set prices. When China has pushed for more control in joint Arctic projects, Russia has kept its involvement limited. Russia wants China as a customer. It has not indicated any willingness to let China become a co-owner. The Arctic is warming 4 times faster than the global average. Scientists project the Arctic Ocean could see its first ice-free summer before 2050. The Northern Sea route is being built on the assumption that the climate will keep destroying what makes it dangerous. In 2025, 107 vessels transited the Northern Sea route. The Suez Canal handles approximately 50 vessels per day. The Arctic processes in a full year what Suez handles in about 2 days. China officially describes itself as a near-Arctic state, despite being roughly 900 kilometers from the Arctic Circle. The Istanbul Bridge, which completed the first commercial non-icebreaker Arctic transit in October 2025, is not ice-class certified. It made the transit during the 6-week annual window when conditions allowed. Outside that window, the same ship cannot make the journey without icebreaker escort. China's Arctic plan rests on 2 assumptions that have not been fully tested. The first is that the climate cooperates. The route gets more viable every decade as ice retreats. There is an obvious irony. The ship's using the Arctic burn fuel that accelerates the melting that makes the route navigable, in the environment where those emissions do the most damage. The second is that Russia remains a reliable partner. As of 2026, the relationship has delivered Yamal LNG and a 2025 joint roadmap. It has not delivered expanded Chinese equity in new Arctic projects, year-round navigation rights, or any meaningful Chinese control over the icebreaker escort system Russia operates as a commercial monopoly. One analyst put it directly, Russia would like China to be a junior partner in the Arctic, but the Chinese disagree to be a junior partner anywhere. That disagreement has not been resolved. It has been papered over. China officially describes itself as a near-Arctic state in its Arctic Policy White Paper. To be clear, China's northernmost territory is roughly 900 kilometers from the Arctic Circle. By that logic, France is a near-Baltic state, and Australia is a near-Antarctic country that should probably have a seat at the table for decisions about the South Pole. China is not wrong that the Arctic matters enormously to its interests. It is just creatively accounting for where it is on the map. Here is what China is actually building. A corridor that cuts 40% off the China to Europe distance, developed with a partner that insists on retaining control of the waterway, accessible without icebreaker escort for 6 weeks per year, run by 2 small companies while every major Western carrier stays away. The $100 billion is real. The ambition is real. The route's advantages over the Suez Canal, Malacca, Hormuz, and the Red Sea are real, especially after 2026 showed exactly how fragile those southern routes are. What is not yet real is a year-round, commercially competitive, politically stable Arctic corridor that China controls. That version of the Polar Silk Road is still being built, one icebreaker season at a time. If this made you think differently about global trade, wait until you see what the 2026 Hormuz crisis cost the world and how Gulf nations are spending $20 billion to reroute around it. That video is already on the channel.